Well, greetings and welcome to episode 125 of Bible 180, 180 episodes between Genesis and Revelation. Today we're on a story in Luke 17, verses 11 through 19 of the 10 lepers. Remember the ones who were healed and only one returned to give thanks. 10 lepers, sick with an incurable disease. They were marked in the time of Jesus as untouchables. They were kicked out of fellowship with everyone except other lepers. Everywhere they went, they had to announce themselves unclean leper so that everyone would stay around so that they wouldn't catch what the lepers got. It may have been a long distance prayer, but they cried out, Jesus, Master, have mercy on us, cried out from a distance. And it was a cry for help that Jesus heard. And when he heard it, Jesus tells them to go show themselves to the priest. And as they went, they were healed. Okay? As they went, they were healed. They looked at their hands as they went, and they were starting to be restored. They stroked their faces, and the sores had been healed. They peeked out underneath the bandages that were all over their bodies, and the signs of decay had gone. Their fingertips and ears were back. As they went, they were healed. And 9 of them just kind of kept going without a backward glance. And 9 lepers figured, well, we're healed. This is awesome. One returned to Jesus to give thanks. And Jesus said, where are the 9s? It seems that they never thought of being thankful and returning to give thanks. And the 9 lepers who didn't return have been kind of chastised over the years in preaching in so many sermons. A sermon title I saw a while back about the healing of the 10 lepers and the 9 who didn't return. The sermon title was The 9 Bad Boys of Ingratitude. It's an easy sermon to preach, and of course I've preached that sermon early in my ministry. And you know, when you hear a sermon like that, you go home and you kind of feel guilty for a little while that you're not like the 1 leper who returned to give thanks, and you're more like the 9 lepers who got something for nothing and then you just went away. And if you've ever felt that way, I feel for you, because I am so much like one of the 9 lepers who didn't return to give thanks than the 1 leper who quickly returned to give thanks. Personally, I'm much more like the woman who was rushing home from a doctor's appointment. The doctor had been somewhat delayed at the hospital and the lab work took a little longer. She left the clinic. She was a little late. She was behind schedule. She had to pick up her prescription at Fred Meyer. She had to pick up the children from a babysitter and go home and make supper and then make it to a prayer meeting that night at church. As she began to circle Fred Meyer parking lot looking for a space, the windows of heavens were opened and a downpour began. She wasn't usually one of the ones to bother God with one of those problems, but she began to pray, oh dear Lord, I know you know what kind of day I've had and there's a lot to do. Could you please grant me a parking space right away, because I want to get close to the building so I don't get all wet with this downpour. The words were just almost out of her mouth when she saw the backup lights of a car right at the end of the road, the best spot in the parking lot close to the Fred Meyer front door. She made a beeline for it, and as she pulled in, she said, never mind, God, something just opened up, right? I find myself like that woman so many more times than the 1 leper who returned to give thanks. I'm much more like the 9 lepers who didn't return. I'm often rushed. I'm often distracted, busy, unthinking, impatient. I don't always take time to reflect and with that sense of gratitude say, oh, thank you, God. But today, I want to give those 9 non-returning lepers a break. Okay, let's give them a break. I'd like to share a word or two on behalf of the 9 lepers who didn't return to give thanks, because I've heard about those bad boys for so long, and there might be numerous reasons that they didn't return to give thanks. For instance, It might be quite simple. The first leper might have been frightened. Pure and simple, he didn't understand what happened, and it might have scared the pants off of him, so he looked for some place to hide because he was terrified about what happened, so he just ran. Second leper might have been offended because he had not been required to do anything challenging before he was healed. Some people I know figure you have to do something to get something. It's just the way that the world works. And so this healing that he got was just too easy. He had expected months, maybe years of fasting and prayer and washing and righteous living to be the requirement to be healed. His motto was, you get what you paid for, and he hadn't paid for anything, hadn't done anything. So Jesus kind of offended him with just healing him. Third leper might have realized too late that maybe he didn't want to be healed. I mean, he had learned to cope with his sickness, and he didn't know how he was going to live without his leprosy. And although it had been kind of his fervent prayer to be healed, he began to see how much he had relied on his leprosy for his own self-definition. He was comfortable with his condition of suffering and thought, my leprosy is my lot in life. It is my cross to bear. And Jesus took away a core piece of his identity. Fourth leper, I mean, maybe he just forgot. Plain, simple, he just forgot. So happy that he didn't return to give thanks. Have you ever forgotten to say a word of thank you? Written a thank you note, you forgot to do it, forgotten to make a phone call? Maybe that was the fourth leper's problem. He just forgot. Fifth leper might have been one of those people who's unable to say thank you to anyone because he hadn't said thank you for so long, it didn't even occur to him to give thanks. I mean, it wasn't even in his vocabulary. To him, it was like speaking a foreign language. You ever know people who, no matter what, they just don't say thank you? Well, maybe that was the fifth leper. Or the sixth leper might have been a woman, a mother who had been separated from her family for 10 years because of her leprosy. And she was now first able to get back with her husband and her children. So she didn't return to give thanks. She was thankful, but she was running to be with her family at home. She had been freed by Jesus, and she wanted to get home to her husband and her kids. Seventh leper, maybe he didn't return to give thanks because he didn't believe Jesus had anything to do with his healing. He knew that the healing had taken place, but he thought, well, there must be a perfectly other good reason, some intelligible explanation of what happened. So, like the woman in the parking lot, he didn't return to give thanks because he felt like Jesus had nothing to do with the healing that he had experienced. Eighth leper might have thought, well, I've been really taking care of myself. I've been taking vitamins and herbal rubs and massive amounts of CBD oil. I've been working out. I've been eating raw kale because I have my vegan diet. And I've been exercising and doing morning yoga on the paddleboard. So I've been taking personal responsibility for my illness. So why should he return to give thanks? He'd been healing himself after all, he thought. Ninth leper, well, I mean, who knows? Ninth leper. Maybe there's multiple reasons why the ninth leper didn't return to give thanks. He might have his own reasons, and it might be a good reason. Why didn't he return to give thanks? Who knows? Maybe they're not the bad boys of ingratitude, and after all, maybe they're a lot more like you and me than we care to admit. So what's the point of this story, the 9 lepers who were healed and didn't return? Well, there might have been good reasons for them not returning to give thanks. On their way home, hiding in fear, refusing to believe, offended what they might call cheap grace, so happy they forgot, lost in their leprosy, unable as, I mean, who knows why they didn't? But perhaps the point is when Jesus said to the one leper, "Rise and go your way. Your faith has made you well." Has made you well means the other lepers, even though they were healed, they weren't well. They weren't made whole. Maybe the point is to be made whole, is not just to be healed, but it's something of who you are in your heart of hearts. It's thanksgiving and thanks living all rolled into one. It's humbling. It's being humbled by knowing God blesses each one of us in so many ways that we don't even recognize day to day, that we need to be faithful, we need to be thankful, we need to live lives of gratitude. And I think that just underscores what we've been doing through all of these episodes, taking a gratitude journal, giving thanks for big things in life, like comfort in a time of trouble, hope in the face of death, or small things, little things, a walk with the friends, fresh strawberries, clipped nose hairs. I mean, think of big things that we're thankful for, like where we live. We live in Central Oregon, beautiful mountains, streams, and forests, but little things like that morning fresh cup of coffee with a little bit of Italian sweet cream in it that I have every morning, fresh toes after a pedicure, unexpected text message from a family member or friend. Think of that gratitude and how important that is. Grateful for things in the present, yesterday, and tomorrow. Grateful for the way God blesses our lives and leads us and guides us. It's so important to remember focusing on what's going to be good about the day, giving thanks to God at night, returning to give thanks, because when you give thanks, as the one leper who returned, you are made well, you are made whole. Hang in there, give thanks. And until the next episode, you take good care. Bye-bye.